1999 was a weird year for Marvel. Instead of one massive unified blockbuster, Marvel put out a run of events that were smaller, stranger, and way more interested in ideas than spectacle. Stories that weren't really about conquering the universe, they were about control, identity, power, and whether the systems holding Marvel Universe together were even worth preserving anymore. In this video, part 8 of my series on every Marvel event ever, I'm looking at 3 very different stories released in 1999. The Eighth Day, Magneto War, and Earth X. None of them are remembered as the biggest events Marvel ever published, but all 3 say a lot about where Marvel was creatively at the time, and where it was about to go. The Eighth Day. Before diving into the story, it's important to understand the origins of the Eighth Day. This Marvel event can catch you off guard if you're unaware of the background. The Eighth Day was a crossover event in 1999. It emerged during the late 90s when Marvel experimented with its smaller, character-driven events instead of constantly rebooting the universe. Instead of having its own miniseries, the stories unfolded across several ongoing titles, each written by its regular creative teams, resulting in subtle tone shifts from issue to issue. The main chapter of the events appear in a few key books. Iron Man Volume 3, number 21 and 22, establishes the threat and presents the larger mystical stakes. Thor, Volume 2, number 17, ties the event directly into Marvel's hierarchy of gods. Peter Parker's Spider-Man number 11 shows Spider-Man discovering the God Machine beneath the Daily Bugle, and Juggernaut, the Eighth Day number 1, is a one-shot that serves as the emotional and thematic heart of the entire story. No single creator is behind the Eighth Day. Instead, it was coordinated by editorial staff with the Juggernaut one-shot designed to unify everything and provide a real conclusion. Although it is often referred to as a Juggernaut story, it technically involves a crossover with the Avengers, Spider-Man, Thor, and the larger Marvel mystical universe. The event also took a rare, deep look into Marvel's magical world, bringing in names like Sidorak, Watum, Icon, Ragador. These names, typically associated with spells, became active players with lasting effects. With that context cleared up, the story of the Eighth Day actually begins with gods. Marvel has produced many large-scale events involving cosmic battles, universe-ending threats, and realities hanging by a thread. We might have already discussed a few of these, and I know at least a few of you have heard debates about which one counts as real events. The Eighth Day stands out because it focuses not on space or timelines, but on God's free will and a forgotten mystical wager that almost turned humanity into collateral damage. At the center is Juggernaut, a character known for sheer force and destruction, who unexpectedly becomes the only one capable of stopping a threat far bigger than himself. Long before modern civilization, 8 immensely powerful mystical entities clashed. These were not simple demons or sorcerers, but extra-dimensional forces revered as gods, each representing a different facet of mystical power. Their names were Balthak, Sidorak, Farala, Icon, Prakan, Ragador, Voltar, and Watum. Rather than engage in open war, they opted for a more complicated and dangerous approach. They established a pact called the Wager of Octessence. Each entity created a mystical artifact, a totem infused with part of their power, and built temples on Earth to house them. The rules of the wager were straightforward yet terrifying. The first human to touch each artifact would become an exemplar, a living avatar of that god's power. Once the first exemplar existed, a spell would trigger, compelling other mortals to seek the remaining temples. When all 8 exemplars were created, they worked together to build a massive arcane engine known as the God Machine. The purpose of the God Machine was absolute. It would strip humanity of free will and mentally enslave the population. Each exemplar would command 1/8 of the world's people as an army. Those armies would clash in global conflict called the Eighth Day, and the champion of the winning god would be deemed supreme. Earth was never the battlefield, it was the prize. During the Korean War, soldier Kane Marco felt a powerful pull towards a hidden cave. Inside, he found the crimson crystal of Sidorak. The moment he touched it, Marco transformed into the Juggernaut, gaining immense strength and near invulnerability. However, the ritual went awry. An artillery strike collapsed the temple, bearing the ancient runes meant to complete the spell. The chain reaction never happened, no other exemplars were summoned, and the Wager of Octessence stalled. This interruption had an unexpected result. Unlike the later exemplars, Juggernaut maintained his own will. Sidorak empowered him, but never completely controlled him. For decades, Juggernaut was a force of destruction without realizing he was meant to be the opening move in a god-driven apocalypse. Eventually, the ancient magic corrected itself. When the binding brazier of Balthak was touched, the dormant spell reignited. All around the globe, 7 people felt an inexplicable compulsion. One by one, they were drawn to ancient temples and transformed into exemplars. Inferno, Conquest, Bedlam, Carnivore, Stonecutter, Decay, and Tempest. Unlike Juggernaut, these exemplars didn't just gain powers. Their minds were reshaped. Their gods communicated through them. They were given purpose and an unwavering belief that their actions were necessary. Once united, the exemplars moved with precision. They chose Manhattan as their base and began building a god machine beneath the Daily Bugle. Spider-Man was the first to discover it, and immediately grasped the severity of the situation. Thor, Iron Man, Professor X, and other heroes joined the fight. But it made no difference, the exemplars defeated them all. With the machine finished, heroes and exemplars were teleported to the North Pole, a nexus of Earth's mystical ley lines where the god machine would operate at full power. Must be why Santa Claus always hangs out up there. Humanity was a seconds away from losing its free will. Inside the machine, Juggernaut made direct psychic contact with Sidorak. An unexpected moment, what should have been a quiet, internal realization. For the first time, Cain Marko fully understood the truth. He was never chosen, he was owned. And for the first time in his life, Juggernaut refused. Where the other exemplars were extensions of their gods, Juggernaut resisted. Through sheer will, he broke Sidorak's control, turned on the other exemplars, and destroyed the god machine from within. The 8th day ended before it even started. The backlash scattered the exemplars across the globe. The conflict wasn't truly over. They eventually regrouped, captured Juggernaut, and prepared to execute him as traitor of the Octessence. Even Earth's heroes were powerless to stop them. What finally ended the conflict was not strength, but clarity. Captain America argued that the exemplars weren't villains, they were victims. Mortals distorted and controlled by gods who didn't care about their fates. Bedlam used her psychic powers to show the others who they were before their transformation. The spell broke, the exemplars kept their powers, but regained their humanity. They turned their backs on the gods who exploited them. The Octessence lost. The 8th Day is not remembered as one of Marvel's biggest events, but it remains one of the most thematically rich. It is a story where free will is more important than raw power, and where a character defined by unstoppable force triumphs not through brute strength, but by choosing not to submit. Sometimes the most dangerous thing in the Marvel Universe isn't a cosmic god or an ancient prophecy, it's a man who decides he won't be controlled. Magneto War. Magneto War is one of those late 90s X-Men events that doesn't really get talked about much anymore, even though it kinda quietly reshaped the entire mutant side of Marvel for years. Magneto War ran from March to May of 1999, and like the 8th Day, it wasn't a standalone miniseries. Instead, it unfolded across the main X-Men books of the time, letting each title handle a piece of the story. Core issues are Uncanny X-Men 366 and 367, X-Men Volume 2 86 through 87, plus the oversized X-Men Magneto War special that acts as both a prologue and thematic statement. This was also a transitional moment for the X-Men. Professor Xavier had only recently returned after being missing for months. The team lineup had shifted, and the franchise was still dealing with the long shadow of Magneto's last global-scale attack, the one where he shut down the world's electronics and ripped the adamantium straight out of Wolverine's body. That history matters because Magneto War isn't about whether Magneto is dangerous. Everybody already knows the answer to that. For months the world believed Magneto was gone. The man once known as Eric Lensher, or Magnus, was presumed dead after the destruction of Avalon, his space station. In his place stood Joseph, a younger amnesiac mutant who looked exactly like Magneto and had even joined the X-Men in an attempt to redemption. Some believed he was Magneto given a second chance. Others never trusted him for a second. Joseph didn't trust himself either. Haunted by the possibility that he was really Magneto Reborn, Joseph left the X-Men alongside Israeli agent Sabra, determined to uncover the truth about his origins. While he searched for answers, the world kept turning, and tensions between humans and mutants continued to rise. At the same time, the X-Men themselves were struggling. Xavier returns to find a team he barely recognized and a world far less willing to listen to his message of peaceful coexistence. Genosha was locked in an endless civil war. Anti-mutant sentiment was boiling over, and beneath it all, something was moving pieces into place. The Acolytes, once Magneto's most devoted followers, had fractured into rival factions. Some still believed Magneto would return, others were tired of waiting and wanted answers. That is what brings the story crashing into motion. The X-Men are attacked in their own home while they sleep. Fabian Cortez leads a group of renegade acolytes in a psychic assault, using the mutant Ram to manipulate dreams and influence Professor Xavier himself. When Xavier breaks free, the situation spirals out of control. Cortez forces Ram to push his powers beyond safe limits, nearly killing him. And this is one of those small but important moments in Magneto War. Xavier and the X-Men stop fighting, not to win, but to save Ram's life. That choice doesn't go unnoticed. Several acolytes realize they've crossed the line, and hostilities break down on the spot. But when the acolytes ask Xavier for refuge, he refuses. Not because he hates them, but because he admits he no longer believes he can save everyone. Too many failures, too much blood on the floor. Instead, Xavier sends them away and quietly reveals the truth to his team. The acolytes believe Magneto has returned, and Cortez came looking for confirmation. If Magneto really is back, the X-Men need to find him first. Meanwhile, Joseph's search for answers takes a brutal turn. Medical testing reveals that while he is genetically identical to Magneto, his DNA itself is artificial, a forgery layered on top of a copied genome. Before Joseph can process what this means, he's abducted by a mysterious woman who calls herself Astra. Astra claims to be Joseph's creator and Magneto's past. She reveals that she was once part of Magneto's earliest Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, before betrayal and resentment drove them apart. After Avalon's destruction, Astra recovered Magneto's body and used advanced alien technology to create a biological duplicate, Joseph. Younger, more powerful, and without the mental restraints Magneto placed on himself. To make the copy work, Astra had to salvage Magneto's mind, and in doing so, she restored the real Magneto as well. When Magneto awakened, Astra sent Joseph to kill him. Magneto escaped, injured Joseph, and left him amnesiac in Central America, where he was later found and mistaken for a de-aged Magneto. While Astra vanished to prepare her next move, Magneto stayed hidden, letting the world believe Joseph was him. And now, we get to the part where Magneto is done hiding. From his polar tower in the Arctic, Magneto calls his most loyal acolytes back to him and sends his robotic servant Ferris to United Nations with an ultimatum. Give him land where mutants can live free, or face the consequences. To make his point, Magneto unleashes a massive electromagnetic storm, crippling the planet's infrastructure across entire continents. Aircrafts fall from the sky, power grids collapse, the world panics. The X-Men race north and crash. Stranded in the Arctic, they're held back while Magneto's plans escalate. The United Nations scrambles for answers. When Russia launches a nuclear strike against the Polar Tower, Magneto stops it, barely. The detonation still damages the magnetosphere, forcing Magneto to concentrate every ounce of his power just to keep the planet stable. That's when Astra makes her move. Using her control over Joseph's altered DNA, she forces him into the battle, sabotages Magneto's amplifiers, and nearly pushes the world into magnetic collapse. Magneto absorbs part of the storm to keep the Earth intact, and is immediately attacked by Joseph. The X-Men finally reach the tower. The fight splits fast. Nightcrawler takes down Astra, others confront Magneto directly, and Wolverine, still carrying the scars of their past, wants blood. In the end, it isn't Magneto who saves the world, it's Joseph. Freed from Astra's control, Joseph helps repair the magnetosphere, then makes a choice no one else can. Realizing the damage can't be undone safely, he merges with the magnetosphere itself, taking the Polar Tower with him. Joseph dies, saving a world that never fully trusted him. With the tower gone, Magneto is finally vulnerable. Before the X-Men can act, the United Nations, guided by Dr. Huxley, hands him Genosha, not as a threat, but as a nation. Xavier stops Wolverine from killing Magneto. X-Men leave in defeat. Magneto stands victorious, but diminished. Power is fading, and the cost of the war has taken its toll. And Magneto War ends with Magneto ruling Genosha, setting the stage for Magneto Rex, the 12, and the years of mutant politics to follow. It fractures Xavier and Wolverine's relationship, reshapes the Acolytes, and quietly proves something unsettling. Xavier's dream isn't the only option anymore, and Magneto didn't win by conquering the world, he won by forcing it to negotiate. In contrast to many of the big-ticket 90s X-Men crossovers, like Fatal Attractions or Age of Apocalypse, Magneto War tends to be remembered as more polarizing than beloved. It wasn't universally panned, and plenty of fans enjoy parts of it today, but at the time it didn't generate a strong critical consensus of excellence. It left a mixed legacy that is often appreciated more in hindsight for the influence it had on things like Genosha and Magneto's role coming in the 2000s. Earth X. Earth X wasn't born as a normal Marvel event. It didn't come out of an editorial summit or a line-wide mandate. It started as a thought experiment. In 1997, Wizard magazine asked Alex Ross to imagine a possible future universe. Ross came back with something bleak, strange, and quietly unsettling. A world where every ordinary human has gained superpowers, and where that miracle had broken the idea of superheroes entirely. The issue sold out almost immediately. Interest was strong enough that Marvel republishes Ross' notes and designed the Earth X sketchbook in 1999, and that sold out too. That was the moment Marvel realized this idea had legs. Rather than scripting it himself, Ross handed his notes to writer Jim Krueger, with John Paul Leon on interior art, and Ross remaining deeply involved through his painted covers and overarching concepts. The result was Earth X, numbers 0 through 12, released in 1999, set in an alternate future officially designated as Earth 9997. It wasn't a crossover, it didn't interrupt ongoing books, and it didn't rely on tie-ins. It simply asked one question: what happens if the Marvel Universe keeps going and everything finally breaks? 10 years after the end of the Heroic Age, that answer becomes clear. Black Bolt, fearing the eventual persecution of the Inhumans, releases the Terrigen Mists into Earth's atmosphere, mutating humanity on a global scale. Almost everyone gains powers, but unevenly and without control. To hide what he's done, Black Bolt blinds Uatu the Watcher and abandons Earth entirely. With Uatu unable to fulfill his role, X-51, Machine Man, is taken to the moon and forced into the position of Earth's new Watcher, a job he neither wants nor fully understands. From there, the familiar pillars of the Marvel Universe begin to collapse. Captain America kills the Red Skull and immediately quits the Avengers, convinced that crossing that line disqualifies him from being a symbol. Reed Richards attempts to solve the world's energy crisis with a global vibranium power network, only for it to catastrophically fail, triggering a chain reaction across the planet. One of his scientists falls into the reactor and emerges encased in vibranium as Iron Maiden. Soon after, Doctor Doom and Namor clash with the Fantastic Four. Doom and Susan Storm die, Johnny Storm is killed by Namor, Franklin Richard retaliates by cursing Namor, forcing half his body to burn when exposed to air. A shattered Reed dons Doom's armor and exiles himself to cancel Doom in Latveria. As Terrigen mutations spread, the world looks for someone to blame and settles on Reed's failed experiment, labeling it Plague X. At the same time, Benny Beckley, the son of Comet Man, manifests a terrifying psychic ability to control others. Backlash from his powers kills nearly every telepath on Earth. Benny becomes known as the Skull, a child dictator with godlike mental influence. Captain America, now partnered with an evolved Red Wing, tries to stop him, but even they fall under the Skull's control. The world is only free when Cap kills the boy himself, another victory that leaves nothing clean behind. Running underneath all this chaos is the true revelation of Earth X. Loki uncovers the secret behind the superpowers themselves. Earth is one of the countless worlds seeded with gestating celestial embryos. Ancient humans were modified by the Celestials to develop powers not to be heroes, but to act as antibodies, defenses meant to protect the planet and the growing Celestial within it. Mutants, Inhumans, gods, and devils are all part of the same system. Even the gods are psychologically constrained, becoming what mortals believe them to be. Loki realizes he was never inherently evil. He became that way because that's what humanity expected him to be. When the Celestials finally arrive to harvest Earth, the last pieces fall into place. Galactus appears, not as a mindless destroyer, but as a necessary counterbalance. A force meant to consume celestial embryos before they can be born. Reed Richards asks him to remove his helmet, revealing the most devastating truth of all. Galactus is Franklin Richards. After the Fantastic Four destroyed the original Galactus long ago, Franklin willingly erased his own identity and convinced himself he was the Devourer of Worlds, because the universe needed one. Reed understands this and makes the impossible choice not to remind his son who he truly is, knowing that saving Franklin would doom everything else. X-51 finally understands the Watcher's true purpose. They were never meant to observe heroes, they exist to guard celestial eggs, and long ago they failed. X-51 destroys Watu's ears, ending his ability to hear, and sets out to destroy every celestial embryo in the universe, so this cycle can never happen again. Back on Earth, Reed converts his vibranium network into massive human torches, attempting to burn away the Terrigen Mists and restore humanity, even if the world that comes after will never resemble the one that came before. Earth X isn't remembered because it was loud. It's remembered because it was heavy. It is a story about destiny versus identity, and whether power makes somebody special or disposable. In a world where everyone becomes superhuman, heroism doesn't vanish because it's no longer needed. It vanishes because it becomes unbearable. Sometimes the Marvel Universe isn't undone by villains or invasions. Sometimes it collapses under the weight of its own mythology. And Earth X leaves you with one final uncomfortable question. If this is what the future looks like, was the heroic age ever meant to last? When Earth X released in 1999, the reaction was mixed but intense. Some readers were blown away by how ambitious it was, praising the world building, the Alex Ross designs, and the sheer nerve of re-examining the entire Marvel Universe from the ground up. Others bounced off it hard, finding it dense, heavy on exposition, and more interested in ideas than action. This wasn't a book trying to please everyone, and it definitely wasn't trying to be a traditional superhero event. Over time though, Earth X has settled into something closer to a cult classic status. It's been reprinted multiple times, revisited in sequels, and constantly rediscovered by readers who want something different from standard crossover chaos. It's the kind of story people argue about, and that alone says a lot. And personally, this is one I genuinely love. Not because it's perfect, it isn't, but because Marvel rarely swings this hard. Earth X treats the Marvel Universe like modern mythology, and asks what happens when the mythology starts collapsing under its own weight. It's thoughtful, bleak, strange, and unapologetically big idea science fiction, wearing superhero costumes. It's not comfort food, it's not easy, but it sticks with you. And for me, that's exactly what makes Earth X special. Taken on their own, the Eighth Day, Magneto War, and Earth X can feel disconnected. One is mysticism and free will, one is political brinkmanship, and one is full-on cosmic existential dread. But together they paint a really clear picture of Marvel in 1999. This was a company experimenting again, pushing characters into uncomfortable places, letting villains win, letting heroes fail, and asking questions that didn't have clean, reassuring answers. Juggernaut wins the Eighth Day by refusing to be controlled. Magneto wins Magneto War by proving his way might actually work. And Earth X ends by questioning whether the entire heroic age was ever sustainable to begin. None of these stories are perfect, but all of them are interesting. And that's something Marvel events don't always get credit for. If you're following along with the series, next time we hit the year 2000, where Marvel shifts gears again and starts building towards a very different kind of event storytelling. Before I wrap this up, I just want to say thank you if you've been watching these videos, commenting, sharing them, or supporting the channel in any way this year. I genuinely appreciate it. This channel has been a lot of work, but it's also been a lot of fun, and that's entirely because people actually care enough to watch along. If you enjoyed this breakdown, be sure to like the video. It really does help more than you think. And if you're new here, consider subscribing so you don't miss the rest of the series as I keep working through every Marvel event ever. And if you want to go a step further, I've got a Ko-fi linked below if you'd like to support the channel directly. No pressure at all, just watching is more than enough. Either way, thanks for sticking around. Thanks for supporting the channel, and as always, I'll catch you in the next one.